Yeah, so this is a new type of podcast attempt. I'm here with Davis. So we're gonna talk about this book, which is called The Ring of Solomon, and it's a prequel to the Bartimaeus Trilogy by Jonathan Stroud. He's an English author. Uh, this story is set. Actually, I don't know when it's set, but it's set. I think it's BCE in a fictional Jerusalem, which is ruled by a man named King Solomon. So yeah, it was a fun book to read. What were your thoughts, Davis?
Yeah, I mean, it matched my expectations that of a young adult novel fantasy for this day and age.
Hmm. Yeah, it was kind of cool to go back because we read the series years ago. I know I finished the third one sometime like in early high school. Um, the books came out in the early 2000s, three of them, and those were set in a modern fictional London. But I don't really remember too much about them because it was so long ago. Uh, but yeah, this story was cool. Um, so yeah, the I guess in summary, the plot was basically you have Bartimaeus, who's a genie, and he's working for this magician at the beginning of the book. And in classic fashion, he outwits him and murders him, basically. But it doesn't sound so terrible because it's a young adult fiction. It's not like a grisly murder. I think it's supposed to be kind of funny, but it's also not funny. So it's kind of weird to read it that part where the author introduces him as like a cunning genie.
Yeah, I think that's in line with other young adult novels of that time period, right? Like the ones that we've read in the Artemis Fowl trilogy, the
Mm.
original Bartimaeus trilogy, Harry Potter. Um, it is a very simple premise, which I think hooks the readers in quite well in Stroud's work. So you have these magical beings, the jinns, the afrits, the marids, the ifrit, the imps or something, and they're all bound by these magical contracts to the magicians. So of course, there's cool and awesome things that happen in these books by these magician servant relationships, which gets the ground, which I guess sets the tone and the world building as well.
Yeah, it's a really smart way to build constraints into the world. Like you said, you have the five types of spirits, and the other two you were thinking of were imps and foliates. I'm not sure if I'm
Yeah,
pronouncing it right, but basically you have from lowest to highest order, you have the imps, the foliates, the genies or jinn. Uh, I think afrits are fourth, and marids are the OP crazy spirits. So Bartimaeus is a genie, and apparently there are even subclasses of genie. But I remember reading that he's a genie of the fourth order, which I presume first order means you're the most powerful. And so, yeah, the whole premise between magicians and spirits is a very clearly master slave dynamic where the spirits are summoned from this place called the other place, which we just assume is another dimension. And there they exist in the ether, I guess. Like they don't really have a form, but when they come to the earth, they can shapeshift. Well, at least Bartimaeus can. I don't know. I don't know if all spirits can, but I think so. Anyway, they have powers. They can change shapes, and as soon as they're summoned, they're always trying to get out of the contract. They're trying to look for loopholes, like a really good lawyer trying to find a way to just attack their magician and go back to the other place. So, yeah, it's a really good set of rules. play with, especially for the main character Bartimaeus, who within those rules of slavery can both defy the magician in some cases, or as with Asmira in the book, for example, when he's being dismissed toward the end of the book, he mentions something like she stumbled over a couple of words, she got one part completely wrong, but she didn't have a lot of meat on her anyway, so he decided not to eat her. So it's kind of humanizing him that way.
Man, there's so many footnotes in that book. I think I recall that from the original trilogy too. It's just I'm not sure how to react from that now. I feel like that detracted from the reading if I had to put my final say on it. I did not like that aspect.
Okay, interesting. But they are optional.
Yeah, but I mean, why put them there anyways?
Well, actually, so were you reading it on a digital copy or did you have a physical copy?
I was reading digital. It was a PDF, and it was like one long document that I scrolled through.
Okay, so I read it on an e-reader, a Kobo. So the way it worked when I was reading it is when the
It was
footnotes
at
showed
the
up.
end.
Well, they were all at the end, but if you tap the footnote number, like footnote number 5 or something, it would show a pop-up screen on top of the actual page, and you could read the footnote and then close it. So there was no going between the end and coming back. So
Yeah,
was that how it was for you, or did you have to go all the way to the end?
I mean, it was the same thing as you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I like the footnotes. It's like that's basically if you want more snarkiness, if you want more uh comedy, I guess. It doesn't really add to the story, but it's like an extra layer that makes it more fun. So I kind of liked it. Yeah, but it didn't really add to the story. One thing that was cool was his Bartimaeus's frenemy. I don't know how to pronounce the guy's names.
Yeah,
Farquharl,
Farquaad or something like that. Yeah.
who's basically another Djinni of his caliber, and we see him appear in the original trilogy. And in this one, they seem to be kind of friendly, whereas in the original trilogy, I remember there was more of a
Antagonistic.
like, yeah, it was more of like a friendship soured over many years. And since this book is set many years before the original trilogy, yeah, it was kind of cool. I think I just really like just the I don't know what the word is, but just that dynamic of different characters, just like especially Bartimaeus being kind of for lack of a better word, like sassy or kind of I don't know, you know what I mean? Like that's what I liked about it. That kind of made it fun for me. But all the other characters were so all the humans basically were kind of rigid and not funny and very serious. So it was a cool contrast.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd agree in that. Like, I agree with you. And Bartimaeus had a pretty distinct personality. Like, he was very witty, very calculated and impulsive. Trying impersonating Solomon's like wife while they're constructing his temple and stuff like that, but also like being very aware of his bonds with his magicians and trying to take advantage any way he could. So, a lot of things about his behaviors and actions that make you really want to root for him as the main character of the story. I guess it was, predictable, but well executed to see how like Asmira turned out. It was, I guess, good. I don't know. I'm still debating. It was like good, maybe just plain satisfactory. It was just like okay to learn more about Solomon as well, and that he wasn't just a cold, and powerful ruler that just had this object.
Yeah.
But other than
Yeah,
that, like everyone else, like you said, felt very stiff. Like the other magicians, like Casbah or whatever,
Kaba,
this
yeah.
Kaba was just like cartoonishly evil and blah blah blah. It was just,
Yeah.
but it's a young adult novel, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, Kaba was like classic evil. Solomon was a classic like wise old king kind of thing. And Asmira was
at the end,
at the end, yeah, a typical like teen young adult character who's like trying to do the right thing but doesn't know how to do it. And then she's like faced with her own insecurities and she has to make a decision. And I think those are the three main human characters. I don't know. And then you have the queen of Sheba, which was another kingdom in the story. She makes like a brief appearance, but she's portrayed as I don't know. She's like, I don't know how to
like
describe her.
a just monarch that's beloved by her people. The
Yeah.
the underdog in the story that's supposedly getting hustled by King Solomon, and she's just trying to defend herself and her
Yeah.
kingdom.
The interesting thing was, um, from the beginning of the story, Asmira has like a loyalty to her queen, which is based more on tradition than actually knowing her. And then toward the end, she's faced with the fact that, oh, I'm just a pawn in this person's chess match for kingdoms and whatnot. So I wasn't expecting that to happen. I thought she was just going to be loyal to the end, and that's just how the story is going to go. So that was surprising.
I mean, that would be that'd be terrible if that actually happened.
Like if she just died being loyal to the queen.
Yeah, I think so.
Because
that'd be like no character development on that part. Like no one would have character development. Asmira rescuing Bartimaeus and them influencing each other. That's like the crux of the character development there.
I just figured Bartimaeus would find a loophole so she couldn't be loyal to the queen. If you know what I mean.
I
don't know how it
mean,
would
he
work.
did. He did. He was trying to find like moral and personal loopholes.
Yeah, that's true. Like there's a bit in there where she tells him drop the ring in the ocean or in the sea, and he just drops it in the sea, picks it up, and comes back, which is that's like a classic character move. So as far as the story though, like, there's a bit in there where she tells Bartimaeus, oh, we're going back to Sheba. I thought they were actually going to go back, but it was pretty soon after I realized, oh, this is where the climax of the story is going to happen. Everything's going to get resolved here. But what did you think about the plot? I mean, I know you mentioned it was kind of like expected. If like you weren't surprised how the story went. Is that accurate to say?
I mean, I guess like when I say I wasn't surprised, I guess I wasn't like overly impressed. I wasn't like overly underwhelmed. It was just like right straddled in expectations.
Okay. Hmm. So what would have made you go, wow, that's cool?
Um,
I know it's a tough
it's
question because it's basically I'm just
yeah,
asking you, how would you rewrite the story? Which is a
yeah,
terrible thing to ask.
yeah. It's a pretty loaded question. I guess I would. I mean, it's like a 200-page book. It's a prequel to a main trilogy that gives a little bit more context on Bartimaeus's past, right? In the main trilogy, we hear um, bits and pieces that he tells to Nathaniel, that he tells about his history with Farquhar and their aeons of strife. So we get little snippets of that. Even the footnotes, which don't add to the story, but they add to the world building, which I think is almost as important.
Mm.
And so the premise that I got from the Ring of Solomon was that it's just like a short caper,
Yeah.
Bartimaeus has this unfortunate situation that he's in. Asmira has this mission that she's on. Their paths coincide. They save the day. Um, I think that's all you can really ask for given such a premise.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like another arc in a world basically. You're because this is the fourth book that was written. You kind of have a sense of how the previous stories went. Although I don't remember at all what happened in the trilogy. So I read this without uh, remembering what happened there. But yeah, as far as giving a fun story to read, I think I was pretty satisfied. I didn't really have any expectations. So it was just cool to go back and read a fourth adventure in the story. So yeah, I enjoyed that. And I think I read it over like 10 days or so. So for the first week or so, I think I just read a few chapters a day. I think that really helped me um, kind of get set in the world because it's just a different vibe if you read it all through quickly in a day or two. Uh, Plus, since we were doing this, I figured doing it that way would mean I could remember more of the story, which is true. Uh, yeah. So, how did you read it all through in a sitting, or how did you go through the book?
I think it was maybe 4 days,
Okay.
so like 50 pages a day.
Mm, okay, that's cool. Um, yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know. Am I all out of things to say about the book? It may be. Uh, let's see. Well, it would be cool if this turned into like I don't know if it would be good as an animated series or like a 3D live action, but it's never happened. I don't know. I know there's a graphic novel of the first book somewhere,
Hmm.
which I haven't read. Um, yeah, it might be cool to see it on the screen, but since it's been so long, I guess no one's figured out how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's stumbling. The first, especially the trilogy itself, kind of stumbles into the same neighborhood as Harry Potter, right? You have this like Victorian age, or close to modern age, um, London that
Mm.
features these magicians that are very powerful in society. They operate in the upper echelon of government, and there's a lot of like similarities to Harry Potter that I'd have to contend with. But
Yeah.
having its own unique lore in all of these magical spirits, their bondage to the magicians, that and the rich history that Stroud briefly goes into in the trilogy and Ring of Solomon. I think there's enough differentiation there. I just think that market for British magicians has been kind of tapped out.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you got Harry Potter. What else? I think they had a bunch of failed series. Like, I don't remember the names, but
Yeah, I'm sure other people have tried to take its place or like to try and cash in on that cow.
yeah, yeah. I suppose we can end it there if there's nothing else you want to discuss about the book.
Yeah. Thing.
Let's see, we covered the characters, we covered the story, kind of cover the plot. It's a fictional Jerusalem, so I don't know much about actual Jerusalem in those times and the actual King Solomon, but in my head it was all just desert and sand and like whatever I've seen of in Egyptian documentaries. That's basically what I imagined in my head.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, it's kind of like Aladdin, basically.
Yeah, in that regards, Stroud did a pretty solid job of like the setting the tone of the story, setting like the environment.
Yeah. And yeah, the funny thing was they had a magic carpet in the book, which I was not expecting, and it felt kind of corny to me, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that was pretty funny, especially the fact that like the cards are carried quite literally on the backs of the spirits that the magicians own.
That's true. I take it back. It's corny, but since he put that twist on it, I respect it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the act itself was quite cool as well, especially at the end where it's like Bartimaeus has the ring, it's burning his essence, and he gets the spirit to kill I don't know, Amit or whatever.
Amit. Oh no, he gets him to
Amit,
like he traps him in a
there's
bottle.
in the bottle. Yeah. So the last thing that Bartimaeus tries to do with the ring is like ask if he can freely. To be perfectly honest, like it's not within your capacity.
Sorry, can you say that again? The audio just cut out a bit.
Oh yeah, so the after Bartimaeus gets the being's help from the ring, he asks the spirit if he can do anything for the spirit, like trying to sever its bond. But the spirit says that to be perfectly honest, it's not within your capacity. And there's, I wonder what happened to that ring, because we definitely don't hear about it. I don't think we hear anything about that in the original trilogy, but it's such a powerful artifact. You'd think that that'd be pretty sought after.
Right. Well, yeah, it was cool to see a spirit command another spirit. I don't think that was part of the original trilogy. It might have been. I don't remember.
Yeah. No, you're right. I don't recall anything like to that magnitude, right? Where you're commanding a being more powerful than the merits to your beck and call.
Yeah. So one interesting thing was the character, the spirit Amit, who we learn is that he's not bound by the contract between magician and spirit. He's just sticking to his master Kaba, just because he's like, oh yeah, he's a cool guy. And I don't know if that was part of the stories before, but that definitely makes an interesting dynamic, because it's always like spirits are looking out for each other even though they're enemies. If they can get away with not catastrophically destroying their opponents, they're going to try to do that. But But yeah, in this case, it was like kind of like you have two villains. You have the actual villain Kaba, and then for Bartimaeus, you have his own um, spirit villain. It's like Asmira versus Kaba and Bartimaeus versus Amit, and yeah, that was an interesting thing. It's too bad that wasn't explored a bit more, but within the context of the story, I don't know if it was possible to do that.
I'm curious if Stroud has considered writing more about the spirit world that, Farquhar and Bartimaeus and all the other spirits dwell in when they aren't serving their magician masters. Because I mean, on one hand, it's a mysterious place that obviously has a lot more to explore, but it's also a strong point for the trilogy and this book for the spirits to interact with humans, right? And for the spirits to shape human history because it's history that we can relate to, right? The buildings of pyramids and other great structures, assisting in warfare, right? That's things that we can relate to from our collective knowledge. Not to say that explore more of a mythical spirit world wouldn't be interesting. I'm thinking specifically about like the Legend of Korra. If you've seen that series,
No, I haven't.
would recommend. So that's what I guess that's one takeaway I had from the book. But I mean, you mentioned that he's coming out with another series as well, still writing.
Yeah, as far as the other place in the Bartimaeus books, just it's kind of described in a very uh, vague way. It's like spirits exist in the ether. It's kind of described like space. It's like there's just some stuff, and then you have some spirits, and they only take form when they are summoned to Earth. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems like it's just a plot setting, just where the spirits come from without really exploring it. But yeah, I don't know how you would explore it. It would be cool, but that would be a whole different type of story because we know if humans are exposed to it, it just doesn't work out. So basically, humans can go to the other place or be exposed to it, but they're gonna uh, have consequences in the human world, which is shown with Solomon, and I think also with Kitty in the third Bartimaeus book. Um, so yeah, I mean that would be cool. Um, what was the other thing I was gonna say? Oh, the other series. Yeah, he has another series called Lockwood and Co. I think there are 5 books out, and I think as far as I know, the series is done. They're actually making a Netflix show out of it, which is kind of cool. And then
Nice.
he just released another book, which I believe is the start of a new series. So as far as I know, he writes all young adult fiction, and I'm willing to give it a shot. I enjoy these books. I guess reading this series once a decade is a good target.
Yeah, no kidding. It was definitely a blast from the past.
Yeah, yeah. I think a decade is long enough so that you reminisce about it, but you forget the story and you read through it and you remember. Oh yeah, that's cool. I forgot that part.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of when I asked my friend back in university, like, oh, because he's a big fan of the Harry Potter series. It's like, oh man, I've only read I've only read the third book of the Harry Potter series. You think it'd be good if I watched the first 2 movies and then I read the book. That's how I
Oh,
caught up with the story. Um, and then I asked him, do you think it's a good idea if I go back and read the books? And he's like, well, if you didn't really grow up with it, you probably wouldn't appreciate it.
right.
Because probably most likely at the time if I was like a younger person, then I would be able to appreciate the story more. And then I'd grow up with its like nostalgic fondness of the stories.
Yeah, you make a good point. When I was a kid, probably from the age of like 8 to 14, maybe 9 to 14, I used to read a lot of books, and they were in the same vein as Bartimaeus or Aragon, Artemis Fowl, Harry Potter. So it's that young adult, like you're just a teenager or barely a teenager, and you're in a magical world, and you're battling against like wizards or dragons or fairies and whatnot. So because I already have put in the reps of that type of story, that's why I really enjoyed this one. Because, like you said, it's a blast from the past. You go back to a familiar type of story. Whereas if I never read those and I went back to it at my age now, it would be kind of weird. It would be like, what is so great about this story? I can't even imagine
Yeah, it's such
reading it
a
that way.
it'd be such a weird experience. Um, I'm trying to think like what could we do that'd be similar to that? Like, would we be reading some obscure like murder mystery novel from like the early 2000s that was popular, but not popular with us? I'm not
I
sure
get
what would
like
be like an appropriate analogy.
I feel like Twilight, the series, because I never read it, but it was really popular. And I had a
Mm,
friend of mine, she loved the series. But if I read it, I don't know how I would feel because I didn't grow up with it. It always seemed kind of weird to me. It's like it's a love story with vampires and werewolves. No thanks.
yeah, I think it'd be interesting to try. I mean, if you're willing to invest the time, I think it'd be interesting to read it now and see how you feel about it. But it's also like, one, do you want to invest the time? And two, it's ingrained so much in popular culture that better like something X is a better love story than Twilight, blah blah blah. Like you already have these like societal preconceptions about the series that might be hard to uningrain from.
Yeah, I agree. It would be a good experiment, but I don't know if I'm down. I mean,
I wouldn't do it if I were you.
like I'd
I
be willing to do it if I was chatting with someone who read it at that time. So if I can convince my friend to read it again,
right.
that
I
would be kind of interesting because then it would be very clear what kind of perspective. It's like she liked it when she was a teenager. Let's see how she feels now. And then I read
Yeah.
it as an adult. It's like as an adult man, basically, because I think the story is from a girl's perspective, like a teenage girl. Yeah, so that will be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I read all the books. I think maybe a couple years after the last one came out. So the hype was still there. The movies had come out by that time as well. And yeah, I can say from my perspective then, I don't remember a whole lot of it, but I just wasn't impressed. It was just meh.
The Twilight series.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's not really a hot take. It was just like I think it was just easy fodder for people to hate on. I don't think it was like truly the worst piece of writing on the planet, but
Mm.
it was just an easy scapegoat for a lot of angry people on the internet, I guess.
Yeah, there's a weird thing that happens when you have a book that's really popular. It's only then that people criticize the skill of the writer. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, for example, with this book, The Ring of Solomon. Uh, if you look at the original series, this is kind of it feels like an afterthought. It's like, oh, it's a connected story, but it's not really part of the original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
But aside from you, I don't know anyone else who read the original series that I'm friends with. So for me, it's like I don't really I like the writing. Like I like the writing style with the footnotes. It kind of reads like a textbook, but it's like a funny textbook because it has footnotes.
Mhm.
But no one like we're not really criticizing how well or poorly it's written because we're just talking about the story. But whereas if you look at Harry Potter, it's super popular. I don't think J.K. Rowling ever got criticized, as far as I know, for like poor writing or whatnot. My guess is she's a great writer.
Mhm.
I'm just trying to think of an example. Like, for example, I've read a couple of this book series called Jack Reacher. They made a couple of movies uh, based on the books with Tom Cruise. So
Mhm.
it's basically this like giant ex military American guy, and he takes the law into his own hands and like kills a bunch of people. That's basically the premise of each book, which is
Got it.
like you say, technically, I mean, you could argue it's fodder, which because there is like over 20 books in the series. You could argue it's fodder,
Mhm.
and if you read the book, it's like the words aren't very complicated. I just read one, but you can get through it really quickly, and there's something good about that because you know, like
It's
it's like
digestible.
you're reading a thriller, which is weird to say because usually you watch a movie thriller, but you can also read a thriller. So the point I'm trying to make is, yeah, there's a weird thing that happens if something is popular. People criticize it's the way it's written, but it's popular because of the way it's written. So it's like, what are you really arguing? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of different factors that influence those people to come out of the woodworks. Like, definitely the attention that a series like Harry Potter gets would, uh, just by nature of popularity, the law of numbers would just churn out critics in that respect.
True. Everyone loves to shit on things.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think yeah, I think we've probably exhausted this book because we're just talking about other books now. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think yeah, I think we can wrap this one up. Overall, for me, I enjoyed it. It was a fun story. I enjoyed it because of the original trilogy. I don't know if I would recommend it for someone who hasn't read the trilogy. It's fun if you're three books in already and this is an extra thing, but as a standalone, I don't know. That would be I don't know how it would be. I wouldn't go around telling people they have to read it.
Yeah. Uh, it's a bit tough. I mean, if I knew someone was looking for like the, kind of early 2000s, 2010s level of like young adult fantasy, I'm like, okay, check out Bartimaeus. And if you like that, check out the prequel. But yeah, you're right. It's hard to just like outside of that kind of like specific niche, it's hard to recommend it.
Mm, yeah, cool. So yeah, thanks for chatting with me about this book. Uh, I'll just put it on screen again. So it's called The Ring of Solomon by Jonathan Stroud. Looks like this, but this is in black and white. And yeah, uh, we can wrap it up there unless there's a last thing you want to say.
No, that sounds good to me.